SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on partition of India in print media and cinema. We are talking about a refugee woman and patriarchal society, and in this regard we are going to talk about two stories by Sadat Hasan Manto today. One is Thanda Gosht or Colder Than Ice. It is also translated as cold meat in English. The other story is The Dutiful Daughter by Manto. So, in these stories we see the nuanced human characters being sketched and being limned so successfully and with such profound details by Manto. So, we see not only the plight of the female, of course, the females Manto describes the female's plight, the female's helplessness in great details through his different artworks. But in addition, we also see how the man is rendered a helpless status. Sometimes the man becomes a victim of this man-made violence. It is so unnerving, it is so gruesome, ugly, that it leaves no one it leaves no one unscathed. It is the partition is like falling in an abysmal pit from which there is no redemption, from which there is no recovery further, either for the man or for the woman. So, Sudha Tiwari states that Manto's short stories on partition scathingly highlight the physical and psychological impact of violence, abduction, migration and resettlement, and most openly narrate the issues of masculinity and vulnerability of sexuality during the phases of man-made violence. He does not seem to judge the event or the behavior of the mob, a particular individual. In this regard, we have to note, we should note that Manto basically does not explain his characters or his plot, he merely describes. It seems that there is a sensitive eye behind the lens that is trying to capture the violence in all its length and breadth without having a voice of its own. So, Manto just narrates without really judging, without intervening the series of events that are depicted in his short stories. So, we see that set against the partition, Thanda Gosht refers to the loot, marauding, rapes and communal strifes. It deals with the protagonist named Ishwar Singh, and we also have his wife Kulwant Kaur in the story, and Ishwar Singh is seen as looting and massacring the rival community. Ishwar Singh is massacring the Muslims and looting their property. He is in the process of indulging in such heinous acts, in such heinous crimes. He abducts a Muslim woman, a very beautiful Muslim woman, and he rapes her. But by the time he indulges in, he engages in such act, he realizes that the woman is already dead. Probably she died out of fear. She abducted her, took her away to a lonely place. He took her away to a lonely place where he wanted to rape her. And then he realizes that she was already dead. So, the story goes like this. By the time Ishwar Singh is about when Ishwar Singh indulges in sexual relationship with this woman, he realizes that she is already dead. She perhaps died out of fear, and then later when he comes back home, the entire incident has unnerved him, has disturbed him and unsettled him in such a way that he fails to make love with his wife Kulwant Kaur. So, this situation actually, this entire story gives us pictures of two different kinds of women. One that has been victimized, the helpless woman, the woman that died, and then we also get the picture of Kulwant Kaur, who is an agent in her own right and who ultimately kills her husband with his own kirpan. So, we have pictures of two types of women, so one that is a victim, the other that is an agent, the perpetrator's wife herself, right. So, we also see how crime unmans or unmakes a man after a necrophilic act, having conjugal relationship with a corpse, a dead body actually. The man, as a result, Ishwar Singh becomes impotent. He fails to consummate his relation, or he fails to make relation with his own wife. So, it has unmanned him. The entire incident of necrophilia has unmanned him. The case of the woman being abducted by Ishwar Singh tells the tale of all the women, the different women that had gone through the same experience, similar experience, and who had either committed suicide or was killed by their families. It's called honor killing, and families, especially the patriarch, indulged in killing their own female folk out of fear that they would be violated by the rival communities, they would be exploited, or they would be converted to other religions. Fearing this, the women were killed. So, the case of this dead woman that Ishwar Singh had raped is symbolic of the fate of thousands and thousands of uncountable such women who had suffered similar mishap during partition. Now, Priyamvada Gopal's essay Bodies Inflicting Pain tells us, it gives us a compelling reminder that Manto's stories of the trauma of partition focuses not only on the victimhood of women, but also on the crisis that masculinity itself faced, as in the case of Ishwar Singh, who has after the incident failed to present himself as a sexually active man anymore. So, so masculinity was rearranged in the theatre of sexualized mass violence. The title colder than ice or cold meat, Thanda Gosht, could be interpreted in multiple ways. It could refer to the necrophilic act, the act of raping an already dead woman who was colder than ice. It could refer to the relationship between Kulwant Kaur and Ishwar Singh that had turned cold because the sexual relationship, the conjugal relationship could not be heightened after that incident. The man failed to please his wife, and so we could understand Ishwar Singh had become colder than meat, he had become colder than ice, he had become a cold meat. So, the story can be the relationship had gone cold, it had become colder than ice. So, the story, the title of the story can be interpreted in various ways, and to a larger extent this could be extended, the title could be extended to note that basically human beings had lost their human quotient during the partition. The inhumanity that prevailed in the society made people colder than ice. So, people were carrying out such surprisingly debased acts, surprisingly grisly acts. They were indulging in such violence that the humanity itself had become, a civilization itself had become colder than ice. People were actually carrying, they were carrying out cold blooded murders and incendiary. Raza Rumi states that Manto blends the partition holocaust so meticulously into the lives of his characters that it creates a living memory of the bloody event. More importantly, the dead Muslim girl is far more symbolic than either Singh's impotence or Kaur's desire. It is the most powerful metaphor for what humans did to each other during the 1947 bloodshed. Once again, it is Kaur whose libidinal urges represent the force of life in the darkness of the story, and it, in fact, Kaur's libidinous desires, Kaur's desire for sexual union with her husband is completely contrastive with her husband's inability to fulfill that desire. Husband has become cold after committing a crime. We see Ritu Menon and Kamla Bhasin studying that women during partition, they note that women during partition were located at the intersection of displacement and dispossession, of large scale and widespread communal violence, and of the realignment of family, community and national identities, right. So, women became rich grounds for taking revenge against for taking out one's vengeance on the rival community. So, Tarun Saint in this regard compares the story Colder Than Ice with Amrita Pritam's Pinjar. Saint states that Pinjar can be seen as a reworking of Manto's Thandagosht. We see that Puro, in the case of Pinjar, Puro accepts Rashid afterwards, Rashid, who is her abductor, after the initial phase of a radical rejection of this man who had raped and abducted her. So, in Pinjar, the perpetrator also goes through a certain journey. There is an experience of remorse, the man is squarely guilty towards the end, and then there is forgiveness also, and a reconciliation and a kind of understanding that Puro and Rashid arrives at. So, Puro's reconciliation with Rashid is only possible through reconciliation with her estranged self. So, she was a fragmented self after she had been converted and renamed as Hamida. She was tattooed as Hamida. She comes in terms with her broken identity. She kind of picks up the shards of her identity and moves on. So, we see Rashid's own acknowledgement of guilt towards the end, and the fact that Rashid also transforms as a human being. He becomes more compassionate, and he assists Puro in all her work. So, in all her endeavors. So, this is actually a process of working through the residue of trauma, according to Saint, and this is something that we cannot discover, or we do not have the scope to discover within the short span of narration in Colder Than Ice. Perhaps because of the different genres. Pinjar is a novel where we can delve further into the characters, whereas in Thandagosht being a short story, the scope is little, the scope is not too large, too expanded, and so we see that we see that such kind of reconciliation, such kind of understanding is not arrived at by Kulwant Kaur, and so such understanding is not realized in the case of Kulwant Kaur and Ishwar Singh. There is no, there is a sudden decision that Kulwant takes to kill her husband with his own kirpan, right. So, Pooja Rajesh Mehta notes that across communities men were slaughtered mindlessly, but in this regard she notes that women were actually being taken as a spoil of partition. Actually, they were seen as a looted property, just as gold ornaments, jewelry and cash objects that were subjected to loot. So, appropriation of the female body dominated the mentality of partition, and religious grounds were just the facade. The Hindu Muslim dyadic relation was just a facade. What came out through the chaos of partition, what churned out of the chaos of partition was the gang activity of the men, the act of mass rioting, and the spirit of misogyny that dominated these rioters, these mobs and these gangs. So, we need to understand the group behavior, especially the group behavior of an all male mob. So we need to understand the all male mob behavior, where a less violent man may be provoked to behave in a certain way, to carry out a misogynist act, which is otherwise in normal times unthinkable for him. So, just being part of a group, a lot of men would take advantage of the chaotic situation, and the crimes such as murder and rape would be treated as, you know, something playful, something casually done for the sake of a group fun. So, hatred and expression of hatred through serious crimes like murder and rape had become a joke, had become a commonplace act, and a lot of less violent, less hyper masculine or less aggressive men would also follow these codes of behavior as dictated by the mob or the group, because they were just merely because they were part of the group, and so they were part of the fun basically. So, Urvashi Butalia tells us that in addition to thousands on both sides of the newly formed border, so in addition thousands on both sides of the newly formed borders were abducted, raped, forced to convert, forced into marriage, forced back into what the two states defined as their proper homes. They were torn apart from their families once to protect them from being converted. So, perhaps an equivalent number killed themselves, or they were goaded to kill themselves. There are accounts of innumerable rapes, of women being stripped naked and paraded down streets, of their breasts being cut off, their bodies being carved with the religious symbols of the other community. So, we have already talked about these atrocities being meted out, and the woman's body becoming a rich site that records the communal violence, the communal hatred, the tattooing of the woman's body, the amputating of women's body parts, private parts. Mehta would state that the juxtaposition of Ishwar Singh's two women, Kulwant Kaur and the dead girl that Ishwar Singh rapes, this juxtaposition, this this contrastive projection unsettles the way in which woman as a subaltern figure, as a marginal figure, wields her agency. So, we have only seen, I mean, Manto is actually successful in showing the range of possibilities that can be attached to womanhood, woman and womanhood at the time of partition. So, if there is one case of a woman being a victim, there is another where a woman stands up against her husband's wrong deed and in fact chooses to kill him. So, Kulwant Kaur is revenging on her husband for his adultery as well as for the crime that he has committed on an innocent young girl. And so, this very symbolic act of killing Ishwar Singh with the same kirpan he had used for murdering Muslims earlier is very significant. It is actually I mean, using the kirpan to kill Ishwar Singh is symbolic of, hitting him with the same masculinity which he had abused earlier, which he had misused earlier. And so Kulwant does not kill him with any other weapon but with his own kirpan. So when Kulwant killing her husband with the same kirpan that he had earlier used for massacring Muslims, the same kirpan which is a symbol of masculinity is very significant. It points to how she is, neutralizing Ishwar Singh's masculinity using his own weapon. So when Kulwant unsheaths her husband's kirpan and plunges it into his neck, Ishwar Singh cries out, Kulwant, with this kirpan I have killed 6 men, with this kirpan with which you, and then he dies basically. Ishwar Singh's voice falters and his inability to complete his sentence signifies the unthinkable nature of his wife's agency. So, this is where we see the figure of a strong woman. The task of retrieving women's agency is possible through recovering the strong, outspoken, powerful women's voices that can form a part of the struggle for liberation, the struggle that revisits what has been meted out to women during partition. So, we also see Butalia and other feminist critics talking about women that were part of the section which tormented other women during the partition, and added how through their act of torment they were also exercising their agency, but in a very in a questionable manner. In other words, I mean, when a woman is playing a party to her own community and participating in an act of violence against another woman from the opposite community, is she actually exercising her agency in the right direction, or is it a questionable agency that we are looking at? So, when a woman aligns with her community and the extremist stance of her community to oppress other women, and thereby reinstate the patriarchal assumptions or the patriarchal values, such concept of empowerment need to be problematized, need to be questioned, because different groups, when they bring women within their fold, they are actually pitting one woman against the other, the Hindu woman against the Muslim woman, or the Muslim woman against the Sikh woman. Does a woman even belong to such factions, such political factions, such let us say value systems, such world view, where I mean patriarchal ideas are actually celebrated, undermining even the rights of the woman that take part in such a faction. We need to, so such Butalia questions a very concept of such kind of empowerment. So, agency and activism do not always go hand in hand. When a woman is activist and working from within a faction which is which endorses masculinist values, one can never be sure if such a woman is indeed powerful and an agent. So, Pooja Rajesh Mehta, the story as Kulwant Kaur's voice and actions being juxtaposed to the lack of agency of the girl that Ishwar Singh kidnaps and rapes. This juxtaposition of two female characters provokes the reader to challenge the modes of female representation in partition fiction. So, the death of the unnamed Muslim girl, counters the passionate act of violence committed by Kulwant Kaur. So, the young girl's death, we see that at the beginning of the story, the young girl literally dies. Maybe she was already dead, or she died out of fear when she was abducted and carried away by Ishwar Singh. And this literal death, physical death of this girl can be associated with the moral emotional death of Kulwant Kaur, who is betrayed by her husband, because he is not only indulging in rape, but he is also indulging in extramarital relationship. So, it is also the death of moral emotional aspects. It mirrors the moral and emotional death of Ishwar Singh's wife. So, her body being the dead girl's body being a passive object of loot, soundless body, epitomizes the appropriation of women's bodies as objects of sexual pleasure. And so, her representation through death and through the post-mortem rape, the rape committed on her body beyond life, unsettles the way in which women have been considered during partition by the patriarchal society at large, and especially during the partition. Their bodies were vessels of honor, and this honor was disrupted during these during these disturbing times. Their bodies were subjected to violence during these unusual times. So, treating the female body as an object to be penetrated, to be plundered, takes away any agency that she may pose, and so it is only through the character of Kulwant Kaur that Manto depicts the woman with agency. So, the story actually confronts the reader with the brute-like nature of violence against the women, as well as the agency posed by the woman. And neither of these two facets have been explored successfully and sufficiently through a historiography of partition, which lacks any kind of literary analysis or literary intervention. So, only literature is capable of portraying such uncommon cases of women, right, that are basically silenced in formal historiography. So, the story serves as an agent of its own, and Manto enables the reader to confront the unsettling facets of partition, which can make a vital contribution to the archive. Now, moving on to the next story, The Dutiful Daughter. The story is about a mother that is desperately roaming around the border looking for her daughter after the mother and the daughter get separated during the partition chaos. So, the mother refused to take any help from the police, and she actually goes insane while searching for her child, and later years later actually while the mother is wandering, the fate brings the daughter and the mother together. In fact, the daughter's husband is able to identify her mother while crossing the road and tells his wife that he saw her mother, but ironically the daughter refuses to recognize the mother, right. She hides away, and mother actually falls dead. That is the story. So, Pooja Rajesh Mehta says that restoring women and children to their families is a question, is a topic that amused Manto. He was extremely skeptical about this idea of rehabilitation, efforts to rehabilitate women that had been raped and taken away, and Manto would say that this is a farce, because the same men that had allowed these incidents of rapes to happen were later taking initiatives to bring the women back. So, the entire process was found as farcical by Manto. Manto questions the simple legislation of the Abducted Persons Recovery Bill passed in 1949 in three important ways. So, he says that there are, this is it's not a simple task to repatriate, bring back a woman within the original fold to which she belonged. The difficulties pertain to the reaction of the woman, the rehabilitated woman herself. Then the child, in many cases a child was born out of rape. What happens to the future of such a child? Would the child be taken back? We have we have discussed Ramapada Chaudhary's story Angapali, where the woman comes back with the child, as well as we have discussed we have discussed Jaibo. We have discussed Jaibo, a story by Narendranath Mitra. Or in all these stories, we see that the women struggle with the child born with rape and the acceptance of these children. And then most importantly, Manto questions the term abducted woman. He says that the term itself is a failure. So, a lot of women actually did not want to return to their parents lest they be rejected or treated like untouchables. They committed suicide on their journey back to home, back to their families. Some of them suffered from post traumatic stress disorders. They would take to substance abuse, and sometimes they would even accept their abductors than go back to their original homes, to their natal homes. So, Anis Kidwai also adds, I mean, Anis Kidwai agrees with this problem. Now, a different problem arose. The majority of the girls did not want to go back. The dilemma for their families was a different one. So, some of the women were now soiled. They had lived with, married, born children to the men of the other community. They had therefore diluted the purity of the community. How could they now be taken back? And what was to be done with the visible results of their impurity, their sexuality, their children? So, this is something Anis Kidwai observes. So, resettlement of displaced people that followed 1947 was linked with national reconstruction. So, in this process of starting afresh, the woman was sundered. On the one hand, she had to be brought back, she had to be restored to normalcy, and yet this would be only possible in many cases when the mother and the so called illegitimate child were separated. So, the child was sent back to the abductor, whereas the mother was taken back to the fold of the original family. They belong to two different nations. In a bid to reconstruct and resettle things, bring back the normalcy, the woman had to pay the price basically. So, another thing that Manto questions is that why these women are being termed as abducted women, because abduction is a word, Manto argues, it was used by police forces also to describe elopement of a man and a woman. When two people consensually eloped in full consciousness, two adults eloped, even that was seen as abduction by the police forces. And in these particular cases where the woman willingly ran away, her agency, her choice was unseen and unacknowledged. The man was perceived as abducting a property that did not belong to him, although it was basically a reciprocal, or it is a reciprocal relationship. It was a love relationship where two people chose to live together. So, Manto argues that women had been taken away against their will and violated in the case of partition. It is true that in many instances during the partition, women were abducted against their will and they were unable to exercise their agency and their choice over their fate. However, it is very equivocating and very confusing when the act of elopement and the act of abduction are treated as one and the same, and they are in a way conflated. So, one does not know the will of the woman in such cases. So, the short story ends with the death of the old woman on the side of the road. The mother falls and dies, and the truth is always left unclear about the side, because the story is not being told from the side of Bhagbari, the daughter, right. The reader does not know whether Bhagbari had been kidnapped by the Sikh man, whether she had willingly eloped with the Sikh, or she had accepted her fate and she now chose to live with her abductor. She did not wish to reunite with her mother, just like Puro in Pinjar. We never get the version of the story from Bhagbari's side. So, the silenced narrative of Bhagbari's decisions alludes to the silence that the community both communities had imposed on their women, on the abducted and repatriated women, what the women wanted. If abducted and not repatriated, the woman would convert to the religion of her abductor, silencing her past and eliminating her own experience. So, in many cases women would actually silence their own desires, their own choice. In the case of Lajwanti, we see that Lajo is not even allowed to recount what happened to her when she was taken by the abductor to Pakistan. So, the woman's experience and thereby her own decision is categorically silenced and swept under the carpet. No one is interested to know her side of the story, what she wants, what she wanted then and what she wants now. So, Sudha Tiwari states that Manto's end reveals that partition involves the death of family ties as well as of individuals. So, the sorrows and occasional futility of the exercise of rehabilitation are laid bare as the abducted Muslim woman refuses to recognize her own mother. It is true that many women did find a new life. Many women did find new life after being abducted. Happily married to a Sikh youth, Bhagbari does not wish to risk her happiness by remembering this naked, insane woman as her mother. The story gives us some useful journalistic information too, emphasizing the futility of the exercise of rehabilitation. So, there could be many things going inside Bhagbari's mind. How is she a dutiful daughter? The mother could be seen as a symbol of all her past relations. With the mother falling dead, it is all her past relations that fall dead, and a lot of women cannot reconcile with their past anymore. They have to be for many abducted women, they had to be happy and settled with their current conditions. They had to come to some kind of agreement with their abductor. So, maybe the daughter Bhagbari is being dutiful through ignoring the past aspect of her identity, her relationship with her mother, because she cannot identify herself, she cannot associate herself with that aspect anymore. She has become a different Bhagbari altogether. So, in this regard, we have the possible explanation that another possible explanation of the ending is that Bhagbari's mother might not accept her current reality, the fact that now she has been converted to a Sikh. Although the mother was desperately and insanely searching for the daughter, the mother might be prepared, the mother might be preparing herself to greet the same old daughter which she had lost. In the meantime, a lot of time has elapsed and circumstances have changed. So, the daughter that the woman had lost is not the same Bhagbari after many years have passed. The old woman might not have accepted the current Bhagbari had she confessed, for example, that she had willingly escaped, she had willingly eloped with her abductor, or not even abductor, maybe her suitor. So, there are different possibilities of stories that we could have from Bhagbari's side, which are actually kind of not delved in details, or which are not actually explored in details. So, Bhagbari's ambiguous past is not revealed to the reader. So, this points to the silence that women suffered during the partition, during the displacement and violence initiated by the cataclysm, the cataclysmic events centering partition, right. So, basically we see that a lot of women have to agree with the changed circumstances, with the change fate, and they have to espouse the new life, and it is only possible by not going back to their past. Bhagbari is being a dutiful daughter by not further tormenting her mother with the changes that have already taken place as the time elapsed and many years passed by. So, the death of the mother is the death of Bhagbari's past. So, with this we are going to stop today's lecture. We will meet again for another round of discussions. Thank you.